All right, the next set of problems ask you to solve. These use the zero product property. Which says if I have A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0. So in this case, this is our A and our B. And one of them has to equal 0. So for number 15, we set 6t equal to 0. And we set t minus 5 equal to 0, and we solve. Divide by 6, so t is 0, plus 5, or t is 5. And those are our two answers. For number 16, s plus 8 and s minus 3 equals 0. So we have s plus 8 equals 0, and we have s minus 3 equals 0. I can get two answers. S equals negative 8. Add 3 to solve this one, and s equals 3. Number 17, negative 3w times w minus 8 squared equals 0. So here's my A and my B, two separate. So negative 3w equals 0. And w minus 8 squared means w minus 8 times w minus 8. But they're going to give me the same answer. So I really only need to just do it once. W minus 8 equals 0. So here, to solve negative 3w equals 0, I'm going to divide by negative 3, and w equals 0. And here I'm going to add 8, so w equals 8. So I get 0 and 8. For number 16, I got negative 8 and positive 3. So those are already factored for you. So now they're not factored for us. So we can't just set them equal to 0, because we don't have a product, and it was the zero product property. So we have to factor first, and then we will solve. So we go back to our factoring ideas. Look for a GCF first, and if it's a binomial, factor that out. Look for a difference of squares. If it's a trinomial, and it's just x squared, we use the x. Use that big X. And if it has an ax squared, we use guess and check. So for number 18, I have a common factor of 3x. So 3x times x minus 4. Okay, that came from, right, 3x times x. 3x times x gives me 3x squared. And 3x times negative 4 gives me negative 12x. So you can always multiply it back out to make sure you got what you started with. And now since it says to solve and there's an equal sign, I need to set it equal to 0. 3x equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. So if I divide by 3, x equals 0, and add 4, x equals 4. Number 19, 8x squared minus 6x equals 0. So here we have a common factor of 2. I can only divide 8 and 6 by 2, so I'm going to take out a 2x. And then 2x times 4x, right, gives me the 8x squared. And then 2x times negative 3 would give me the negative 6x. So I have 2x times 4x minus 3 equals 0. And then I can set them equal to 0 and solve. 2x equals 0 and 4x minus 3 equals 0. So we divide by 2, x is 0, add 3, 4x equals 3, divide by 4, and x is 3/4. So those are my two answers, 0 and 3/4. But I don't get those unless I factor first. And number 20, a squared equals 49. Here it's not on the same side of the equal sign, and it doesn't equal 0, so I'm going to make it equal 0. I'm going to subtract the 49. And they're not like terms, so it's a squared minus 49 equals 0. Now that I've done that, I'm looking for a GCF. I don't have one because the a squared has no coefficient, but I noticed that 49 is a perfect square. So I'm looking at what two numbers multiply to negative 49 and add to 0, and that's a plus 7, a minus 7. And when I set those equal to 0, I subtract 7. So a equals negative 7 and add 7, and a equals positive 7. So it's positive and negative 7. Positive 7, negative 7. Number 21, also not equal to 0, so I'm going to take 4x squared equals 81, and I'm going to subtract 81 from both sides. 4x squared minus 81 equals 0. Now, again, starting with the greatest common factor. I don't have a greatest common factor so that I can take out 4 and 81 are not divisible by 2. Well, 81 is not. But I noticed that 4 is a perfect square, and so is 81. So this is 2 squared, and 81 is 9 squared. So my a plus b, a minus b applies. 2x plus 9 times 2x minus 9. That equals 0. And then we are going to solve them. 2x plus 9 equals 0, and 2x minus 9 equals 0. Add 9. So here I get 2x equals negative 9. Here I get 2x equals positive 9. Divide by 2, and we get x equals negative 9 halves, and x equals 9 halves. Number 22. S squared plus 18s plus 81. Oops, that is not the right one. S squared plus 24s plus 144 equals 0. So we have to look for a common factor, and although 24 and 144 have a common factor, the s squared doesn't have a coefficient, so we're looking at our x problem. What two numbers multiply to 144 and add to 24? Well, 12 and 12. So this factors to x plus 12 times x plus 12 equals 0. And I can set those equal to 0. X plus 12 equals 0. X plus 12 equals 0. I don't really need to do it twice because I get one answer. 2 times x equals negative 12. And number 23. Again, there's no common factor. There's a common factor for 18 and 81, but 81 and 18, this is an x problem because my s squared doesn't have a coefficient, so it's 9 and 9. I don't know what just happened. It's moved everything on me. 9 and 9. So x plus 9 times x plus 9 equals 0. So I can solve x plus 9 equals 0. I don't really need to do it twice because I'm going to get the same answer, x equals negative 9. All right, last two. Number 24, looking for a common factor. Again, there is no common factor. There's not very many of them on the test, but you can take those out first if they are there. I'm looking for, I have a coefficient on the p squared, I have the p term, it's a trinomial, so I'm guessing and checking. So p 2p squared plus 3p minus 9 equals 0. So the only way to solve this right now is to factor first. So we're going to factor it. The only way to get 2 is 2 times 1, and 9 is 3 times 3, or 9 times 1. I'll put those in different colors so we can see. And so we get 2p and p. And the only way to do 3 is 3 and 3, so let's try that one first, 3 and 3. And let's check our insides and outsides, 6p and 3p. That's going to work. I need it to be positive, so I'm going to make the 6 positive and the 3 negative. So that 3 is negative, and follow the little path over, and this one's positive. So we have 2p minus 3 and p plus 3. So 2p minus 3 equals 0, and p plus 3 equals 0. And add 3. So 2p equals 3, and p is 3 halves, and then minus 3. and p equals 3. So my two answers are 3/2 and 3. And lastly, again, there's no common factor. I have a coefficient, so let's try 2n. That's a weird looking n. And n. I need to make 11. That's 5 and 1. Let's try that. My outside is 2n. My inside is 5n. That doesn't work. So let's try to switch them. 1 and 5. That makes my outside 10n and my inside 1n. So that can give me 11, and they're both positive because it's plus here and plus here, so everything has to be positive. So 2n plus 11 equals 0, and n plus 5 equals 0. So subtract 11, 2n equals negative 11. Divide by 2, and n is negative 11/2. Subtract 5, and n is negative 5. So my two answers, negative 11/2 and negative 5.